Welcome back to the deep dive. We jump right into these sources you send us, try to cut through all the noise and just get to the core of it.
Yeah, get you that essential knowledge without you having to wade through everything yourself. It's about making sense of some pretty dense stuff.
Exactly. And today we're venturing into some territory that really does kind of redefine reality itself. It's fascinating.
Oh, definitely. We're opening up what many consider foundational material.
Yeah.
Channeled stuff,
Yeah.
about the actual mechanics of consciousness and, well, how reality gets made.
Right. This isn't just abstract philosophy. It's presented almost like a manual.
That's a good way to put it, a manual for reality.
Okay, so specifically, we're doing a deep dive into session 23 of the early sessions, book 1 of the Seth Material. And this one, for those tracking, it was recorded way back on Wednesday, February 5th, 1964.
That's right. Jane Roberts channeling Seth, her husband Rob Butts taking the notes. A classic setup for this material.
And we absolutely have to give credit where it's due. All this comes from the Seth Material, published by the New Awareness Network. You really need to acknowledge them. They've kept this work accessible.
Absolutely essential. And this session 23, it's a big one. It lays out some core ideas, reincarnation, but maybe not how you've thought about it. This thing called inner vitality. And this really intriguing concept that the physical world you see is, well, Seth calls it camouflage.
Camouflage. I love that. It just flips everything. So that's our mission today. Pull out those key ideas, the rules of past lives, why we might keep coming back, this hidden energy source, the secret life of the part of you that just breathes, apparently.
And the kicker.
Yeah.
How you are the creator of the world around you, maybe a bit of a stubborn creator at times, according to
And the
you.
delivery.
Yeah.
It's not dry. Seth has this almost cheeky sense of humor running through it all. Serious insights, but with this light, sometimes really funny touch.
Yeah, expect some pretty high-level metaphysical concepts, but delivered with, like you said, this unexpected wit. It's relaxed, which helps when you're talking about the nature of existence.
Okay, so we're going to slow it down, unpack the terms, make sure it all makes sense. Not just what Seth is saying, but why it's such a game changer for how you might see, well, everything.
Let's dive in.
All right, section 1. Let's paint the picture for session 23. You mentioned Jane Roberts, who Seth calls Rubert sometimes.
Right, referring to the larger identity or entity.
She had her usual pre-session nerves, the jitters, which is kind of relatable, that human side of it.
Totally. The ego getting a bit anxious about stepping aside, But what's funny is the night before, they'd had an unscheduled session, and she felt totally fine then. No jitters at all.
Huh. So the contrast really shows something, doesn't it? This sort of artificial wall between the everyday conscious mind and that bigger self.
Exactly. The ego gets worried, but the deeper self is just ready to communicate. And then Seth comes through and boom, cuts right through any sort of formal feeling.
Right, because they'd been guessing their past lives were in Boston.
Right.
Jen and Rob.
Yeah, they were speculating about Boston, and Seth's opening line just, well, it corrects them and sets this amazing tone. You got to hear it. He says, "Good evening, chicks. You never were proper Bostonians."
Chicks?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. In 1964, channeling an entity.
I know. It just immediately tells you this isn't going to be some solemn, mystical pronouncement. It's conversational, a little bit cheeky, but also, profoundly insightful underneath.
It makes it approachable. So, not Boston. Where were they then?
England. And Seth didn't just say England, he jumped right into specifics, super detailed. He also quickly mentioned their experiments, like with ESP cards.
Oh, yeah? What did he say about those?
He called them elementary, to say the least, which is pretty funny.
A bit dismissive.
A little, but then he immediately followed up calling them good tools for learners. So it wasn't really a put down, more like, yeah, those are kindergarten tools, but kindergarten is important if you're just starting out. Practical encouragement.
Okay, so back to England. What was the scene?
Picture this. A cobblestone street. 2 shops facing each other. One is Throckmorton's shop, doesn't say what kind. And across the way, Reagan's bakery.
Throckmorton and Reagan.
And the Reagan family was substantial. Reagan the baker, his wife, 5 kids who survived past infancy, plus 3 others who died young. A whole bustling household.
Wow, okay. And this is where it gets intricate, right? Connecting these past lives to their current lives in the 60s.
Exactly. This is where the idea of a soul group or this ancestral web just comes alive. Seth starts drawing these really specific lines. It wasn't just, oh, you knew each other. It was precise.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so one of those Reagan brothers from the bakery family, in 1964, he's their present-day cousin.
Wow, direct link.
And another Reagan child, one who died young back then, now reincarnated as the twin sister of a friend's wife, someone named Dick's wife.
Whoa, okay, that's complex. Twins even.
Yeah, the twin dynamic is a whole other thing Seth mentions they'll get into later. But wait, there's more. The head of the family, Reagan the baker himself.
Yeah. Where is he now?
He's the husband of Jane's current mother's niece.
Okay, my head is spinning slightly. That's like layers upon layers of connection, almost claustrophobic.
Right, it's dense. And that's the whole point Seth is making. He stresses that their current family setup, the relationships, the dynamics,
Yeah.
it's not random. He says that English life had much to do with your family and its relationships in this life.
So these weren't just chance encounters. This whole web was deliberately set up.
Deliberately set up for two main reasons, according to Seth. First, to set new challenges for everyone involved.
New lessons to learn, basically.
Pretty much. And second, it was possible because old debts had been paid to a large degree. So past issues were resolved enough that they could move on to a new, more complex curriculum, you could say.
Using the same cast of characters, more or less.
Exactly. Familiar souls taking on new roles to help each other grow, tackle new problems together. It's like a continuation of karmic school, but with lab partners you've known for lifetimes.
That completely reframes difficult family relationships, doesn't it? It's not just random annoyance or tragedy. It could be a centuries-old agreement for growth.
It shifts the perspective entirely. It suggests purpose behind even the most challenging connections.
Okay, so that specific example of the Reagan-Throckmorton crew naturally leads into the bigger question. Why reincarnate at all? What are the rules here?
Right. Seth moves from that detailed case study to the general principles. He talks about two main requirements for needing to continue having lives on the physical plane.
And first, he just notes something about the usual pattern.
Yeah, he mentions that typically entities change sex and race across lifetimes. The idea being to gather the widest possible range of experiences this plane offers. Makes sense.
Get all the perspectives.
Okay.
But then there are the actual requirements. The first one is about fulfilling certain roles.
Exactly. Seth lays out 3 roles that are basically mandatory for getting a sufficient physical plane education. You need to experience being a mother, a father, and a child.
Okay, mother and father. I get that the experience of nurturing, providing responsibility. But the child role,
Yeah.
why is that essential? Can't you just learn about childhood?
Apparently not just conceptually. Seth is quite clear on this. He says a complete childhood is usually needed so the personality can experience the knowledge of human growth.
Experience it directly.
Yeah, think about it. The total dependence, learning basic emotional responses, figuring out who you are, the ego development, puberty, that whole journey from helplessness to adulthood, it's a fundamental part of the human package.
So if someone dies really young, like those Reagan children,
Seth implies that that knowledge of human growth is incomplete. That aspect of the experience wasn't fully realized.
which means they likely need another go-around, another life, specifically to live through a full childhood and adolescence, even if other karmic stuff was settled.
That seems to be the strong implication, yes. He mentions that theoretically you could maybe cover all 3 roles in just 2 lives if you planned it right.
Wow, efficient.
Huh? Yeah. But he says incomplete lives, lives cut short before adulthood, or lives where you don't have children fulfilling the parent role, these often mean you need more tries, more incarnations to tick those basic experiential boxes.
Okay, so the 3 roles, mother, father, child, that's like the minimum pass grade for physical existence 101.
You could say that. That's the foundational requirement. But then comes the second requirement, the real test, and this one's much more, well, abstract. It's about the fullest use of potential.
Ah, potential. That sounds demanding.
It is. This is where it gets serious. Seth states that failing to use your full potential can cause a personality to be reborn more times than would be necessary, based on just fulfilling the roles.
More times than necessary.
Yeah.
So you could be stuck repeating lies just because you didn't, I don't know, write that novel or learn that instrument.
Well, it's not necessarily about becoming famous or achieving worldly success in those specific ways. It's deeper than that. It's about developing your individual inherent potential, whatever that might be, as far as you possibly can while you're here on this plane.
So it's less about the outcome and more about the effort to develop and use what you've got.
I think that's a fair way to put it. It's about the active engagement with your own capabilities. And Seth gives a metric for this success, though it's pretty metaphysical.
Okay, what's the metric?
He defines success in this area as the personality's ability to utilize energy as a unit or to transform energy into unit patterns.
Utilize energy as a unit. Transform energy into unit patterns.
Right.
Okay, break that down. What does that mean?
Think of it like this. Consciousness, or basic energy, is the raw material. Your potential is your inherent, unique talent for taking that raw energy and shaping it into something meaningful, structured, coherent, a unit pattern.
So that pattern could be a piece of music, a scientific theory, an act of profound kindness, a well-raised family, anything where you're channeling energy effectively.
Exactly. It could manifest in countless ways. Jane Herbert's poetry is given as an example later. That's her transforming energy into patterns. The key is the ability and the act of transformation, of utilizing that fundamental energy purposefully.
And this ability, is it something you learn or something you're born with?
Seth suggests it's more inherent, an unpredictable, basic characteristic of any given soul fragment, or personality, as he often calls the individual unit. It's like a natural aptitude you bring with you.
Some people are just better at shaping energy than others, innately.
It seems so. But the physical plane is the workshop where you get to practice and refine that ability. And here's a fascinating twist, something really encouraging.
Okay.
He says that some personalities who seem to do rather poorly by earthly standards, maybe they're outcasts, maybe they fail financially, maybe life is just a constant struggle for them.
Yeah.
Some of those very people expand surprisingly on other planes after death.
Really? So struggling here doesn't mean you failed the potential test.
Not necessarily. It could mean that the very struggle, the internal effort, even if it doesn't lead to visible success here, is actually developing that core energy-shaping muscle in ways we can't easily see. Their inner work might be phenomenal, even if their outer life looks messy.
That completely changes the definition of success and failure. It's not about the results the world sees.
It seems the deepest failure from this perspective isn't messing up, but consciously choosing not to engage with that innate potential, not to even try to shape that energy you have access to.
Okay, so if this core talent is about shaping energy, transforming it into patterns, where does this energy actually come from?
Great question. That brings us directly to what Seth calls the basic vitality of the universe. This is the raw fuel, the source material for everything.
The energy we're supposed to be shaping.
Exactly. Seth explains that this talent for pattern forming exists on all levels of reality, not just here. And it always involves drawing upon the basic vitality of the universe. This vitality is the engine behind inner senses, reality creation, everything.
Now, when you say drawing upon vitality, my human brain immediately thinks scarcity. Like, if I draw too much, is there less for someone else?
And Seth totally anticipates that. It's one of the funniest moments in the session. He sees that thought coming a mile away.
What does he say?
He jumps in with this amazing line. Lest this suggest images of graspy, pot-bellied souls gluttonously grabbing the stuff of the universe for themselves out of the mouths of the less ambitious, let me hasten to inform you that such is not the case.
Huh. Graspy, pot-bellied souls. That's brilliant. He's basically saying, don't worry, it's not like cosmic capitalism.
Pretty much. He immediately clarifies that this vitality is self-generating and limitless. Using it doesn't deplete the supply. It's not a finite resource like oil or gold.
So, me using my potential doesn't take away from your ability to use yours.
Not one bit. It's fundamentally different from how we usually think about resources in the physical world. And he uses a fantastic analogy to explain this.
Which is?
Air. He compares this universal vitality to the air we breathe.
Okay, how so? How is it like air?
Well, he says it's used and reused without any loss of power, strength, or quantity. Think about it. You breathe air in, your body uses the oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide, plants use that. The components change form, but the fundamental stuff isn't destroyed or used up. It just cycles.
Right. The atmosphere isn't getting emptier because we're all breathing.
Exactly. And like air, this vitality seems invisible to our normal senses, doesn't it? You can't usually see the air. You can't easily see this fundamental vitality.
True. Invisible, but essential.
Essential and formative. Here's the core idea. Seth says, like air, this vitality gives shape to every object that you see, and so does it form every camouflage.
Whoa. Okay. So the air analogy isn't just about abundance, it's about creation. This invisible vitality is what actually forms everything we perceive. The camouflage.
Precisely. Every single physical object, this table, the microphone, your body, the stars, is essentially a pattern formed by consciousness organizing and shaping this fundamental invisible vitality. The solidity, the color, the texture, that's the camouflage appearance.
So the chair isn't fundamentally chair stuff, it's vitality. shaped into the idea or pattern of a chair by consciousness.
You got it. It's solidified energy, patterned energy. And without the constant input and shaping of this vitality, the camouflage would presumably just dissolve. It's the breath that creates and sustains the physical world.
Wow. So that ability we talked about earlier, utilizing energy, forming patterns, it's not just about personal development, it's literally about world building.
On the most fundamental level, yes. And using this vitality effectively is, as Seth puts it, as necessary as using air for breathing. It's the basis of existence here, which leads us right into the big paradox, the great human denial.
Right, the denial. We accept breathing air because we feel our lungs move, even though we don't get the chemistry, but this vitality, because we can't easily see or measure it with our usual tools, we tend to dismiss it.
And Seth finds this completely ridiculous. He points out the huge irony. Our conscious mind, the all-important I that we trust so much, it doesn't actually know how breathing works on a deep level. It doesn't consciously manage oxygen exchange.
No, it just happens, thank goodness.
Right. Yet the same conscious mind insists it needs to understand the mechanics of vitality before it can accept its existence. But Seth says the real all-important I, the whole self, does know. It's the conscious fragment, the ego, that simply refuses to acknowledge it.
It's like we've put the most ignorant part of ourselves in charge of defining reality.
That's pretty much Seth's point. And this refusal, this denial, is what leads to what he calls the man divided. We artificially cut ourselves off from the deeper parts of our own being.
How does he describe that division?
He says man essentially cuts himself in half, or even more. He says man accepts only the conscious sensory part and ignores the rest. He uses this exaggeration. Man is aware of only a third of himself, because 2/3 operate in this inner realm to which he will not admit.
2/3 denied. And this leads to those questions like,
Exactly. Man says, I breathe, but who breathes? Or, I dream, but who dreams? He asks these questions because he separates his conscious I from the functions that keep him alive and connected to deeper realities. He acts like the breather and the dreamer are someone else entirely.
it's like saying, my car drives, but who's driving? When you're sitting right there with your hands on the wheel.
Perfect analogy. And to make this denial really hit home, Seth uses this incredibly vivid, slightly dark, but also funny analogy, the man in the dark room.
Okay, tell me about the man in the dark room.
Imagine someone suddenly finds themselves in a room that's pitch black and totally silent, no sensory input for sight or sound. Based purely on that lack of sensory data, this person logically concludes.
That he has no body and no voice, because he can't see or hear them.
Precisely. The lights are out, the sound is off, therefore, I must not have these things. Rational deduction based on limited evidence.
Okay, but surely if he, touches his face.
But here's the kicker. When he uses the very hands, he denies having to feel his own body, confirming its existence through touch. Seth says he yells witchcraft.
Witchcraft. He rejects the direct physical evidence because it contradicts his initial sense-based theory.
Exactly. He clings to the limited conclusion even when new data comes in. And it gets better. If someone else comes into the dark room and says, hey, I feel a body here, what does the first guy say?
Let me guess. You're crazy.
Close. Seth says he calls them a medium, or maybe more bluntly, a crackpot.
So, anyone who perceives beyond his limited sensory definition of reality is automatically dismissed as delusional or suspect.
You got it. It's a perfect, almost tragicomic picture of how humanity, according to Seth, has become way too attached to the camouflage patterns, the physical appearances, and stubbornly refuses to acknowledge the inner vitality, the inner self that creates and sustains them.
The man in the dark room is, well, it's kind of us, isn't it? The modern mindset sometimes. Dismissing intuition, inner knowing, anything that doesn't fit the materialist, sensory-based model.
It's a powerful metaphor for that very tendency. And this brings up the critical point about the whole self. Who is the real I?
Is it just the conscious part playing Scrabble, as Seth says?
No. Seth affirms that the part of you that dreams, the part that breathes, that keeps your heart beating, that is just as much the I as the part worrying about the bills or playing games. In fact, he argues the dreamer-breather aspect is actually more necessary for your physical survival.
More necessary? Why? Because without breathing, game over.
Pretty much. The conscious self can't function for a second without the constant automatic work of the deeper self managing the body and transforming that vitality into physical form. And here's the mind blower. The camouflage world itself, the physical reality you experience.
Yeah?
It's formed by the very same part of you that breathes and dreams. That pattern-forming function is the breather-dreamer self. It only seems automatic and separate because the waking ego refuses to own it, refuses to admit it's all part of one whole personality.
So it's not a machine breathing me. It's me breathing me. It's me dreaming me. And it's me creating the physical world around me, mostly from that deeper level.
That's the core message. The division is artificial. You are the breather, you are the dreamer, and you are the creator.
Okay, if that whole self, the breather-dreamer part, is the main creator,
Yeah.
we need to understand how it creates. What's the mechanism?
Seth provides a mechanism, and he uses Jane Rubert, the channel herself, as a living example of it developing.
How so?
He points out that Rubert had been developing his inner senses unknowingly for some time. Often this happened while she was focused on other things, like her creative work, writing poetry, or working on a book manuscript she had called The Physical World as Idea Construction.
Wait, the title of her own book was The Physical World as Idea Construction before she was consciously channeling this stuff.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Which Seth sees as evidence that her own inner self, her whole self, was already breaking through, already understanding these principles on some level. Her creative work wasn't just a hobby, it was her practicing pattern formation.
So creativity is linked to developing these inner senses.
Deeply linked. Seth suggests that activities like writing poetry were Rubert recognizing and starting to consciously work with the dynamics of the whole self. And he explains the mechanism using this really cool term.
Okay, what is it?
He says energy, that basic vitality we talked about, is received by the mind, which he clarifies as part of the inner world through the inner senses. Then this raw energy gets transformed by something he calls mental enzymes.
Mental enzymes, that's intriguing. What are they? Like thoughts? Beliefs?
It seems to be deeper than just conscious thoughts. Think about biological enzymes. They facilitate complex chemical reactions, making them happen quickly and efficiently without getting used up themselves. Mental enzymes seem to be the unconscious, automatic mechanisms within consciousness that take formless vitality and instantly shape it into structured reality, the camouflage patterns.
Based on what? What directs the enzymes?
Beliefs, expectations, emotions, focus. The deep-seated patterns of the personality. They're the invisible workers translating your inner state into outer form. They operate mostly beneath the radar of the conscious ego, down in that breather-dreamer level.
So my deeply held beliefs and feelings are literally acting like enzymes, constantly shaping the energy around me into the world I experience.
That's precisely the model Seth is presenting. It's a continuous, instantaneous process. And understanding this process, this mechanism of creation via mental enzymes, suddenly makes the concept of time look very different.
How so?
Seth calls time one of your most obvious camouflages. It's part of the constructed reality, not a fundamental property of the universe.
Okay, let's break down time then, because we live by the clock. He distinguishes between different kinds of time, right?
Yes. First is clock time, physical time, schedules, deadlines, appointments at 12.1, that whole structure.
The thing that runs our lives.
Right. And Seth says that kind of time is a complete, unnecessary camouflage. It's an artificial grid we've imposed on reality, made necessary only because we deny our inner self and its natural, nonlinear way of operating. It's a tool for the divided self to manage its fragmented experience.
Whoa. Unnecessary. Okay, so what's the alternative? What's the natural time?
He calls it psychological time. This isn't a grid. It's more like a flow, a subjective experience. He refers to it as a connective, or the second inner sense.
Psychological time. Like when you're lost in a book and hours feel like minutes, or bored in a meeting and minutes feel like hours?
Exactly that. It's your inner sense of duration, your direct pathway between the inner world of the entity and the outer camouflage world. When you're deeply absorbed in thought or creating something or even just sitting quietly with your own feelings, you're operating on psychological time.
And the connection to dreams.
Ah, yes. Think about dream time, how fluid it is, how a whole epic adventure can seem to unfold in what clock time measures as just a few minutes of REM sleep. That subjective, flexible sense of time in dreams is very similar to the experience of psychological time when you're awake and deeply engaged or introspective. Seth argues this similarity is proof that the waking self and the dreaming self are actually aspects of the same self. The rigid division, especially around time, is artificial.
Okay, that makes sense. The experience feels similar. So if the inner self, the dreamer breather, is the primary creator using these mental enzymes and operates on psychological time, what's the job of the intellect, the conscious mind? Is it just useless baggage?
Not useless, no. It has a crucial role. but it's secondary to creation. Seth is very clear. The intellect's job is to manage the camouflage patterns after they've been created by the deeper self. He says, you have made your world, and your intellect should help you deal with what you have created.
So the intellect is like the operations manager for the reality factory. It doesn't design the product, but it figures out how to use it, organize it, navigate it.
That's a great way to put it. It's for dealing with the created world. But Seth gives a serious warning here.
What's the warning?
If you ignore the inner self, if you rely only on the intellect and deny that deeper connection, you miss out on the connective portion of yourself with inner reality.
And the consequence of missing that connection is?
Ignorance. You cut yourself off from the flow of knowledge, intuition, insights, even memories from the whole self that are essential for genuine growth and evolution, both personally and for the species. You end up being a very clever manager of a reality you don't understand the source of.
Which leads us back to that huge, overarching claim.
The big one. Seth states it plainly. You are the creators of the physical world as you know it. Full stop.
Not passive observers, not victims of circumstance, creators.
Active creators. And he emphasizes when this creation is most powerful and, interestingly, most accurate.
When?
In the dreaming state. He says the average person creates when he dreams in a truer and less distorted fashion, and his physical world is much more the product of his dreaming self than it is of his waking state.
Wow. So the reality I wake up into each morning is largely sculpted by my dreams the night before, or by that dreaming level of myself.
That's the implication. The conscious waking self is more like the editor or the reactor dealing with the world that the deeper dreaming self has primarily generated based on core beliefs and vitality transformation. It makes sleep sound incredibly important and productive.
It's one thing to talk about vitality, mental enzymes, the dreaming self creating reality. These can sound very abstract, very out there.
They can, absolutely. Which is why the notes from Rob Butts, Jane's husband, included right here in session 23, are so incredibly valuable. They ground these concepts in actual felt physical experience.
He recorded something happening to him. Not during a session, but just in everyday life.
Exactly. Shortly after the session where Seth discussed all this, Rob documented 3 separate instances of these really strange sensations, as he called them. They happened one Saturday night while they were hosting company.
Okay, what did he feel? He wasn't channeling or anything.
No, just sitting there, talking with guests. He notes he'd had only one small glass of wine earlier, so he was pretty sure it wasn't intoxication. The first wave hit him, and his description is really vivid.
Let's hear it.
He described a wave of magnified tingling or thrilling, suffusing the whole body, flooding up my legs into the abdominal and chest cavities. It wasn't just pins and needles. He said he felt lifted up and swept away.
Lifted up and swept away, just from tingling. That sounds intense.
Very intense. And he also noted significantly that each time this happened, the conversation had turned to family matters or relatives.
Ah, connecting back to that whole Reagan family ancestral web soul group theme from the start of the session.
Precisely. It suggests the energy, the vitality was responding physically within him to the emotional charge of those topics, those deep relationship patterns being discussed.
Okay, so that was the first wave. He had more.
Yes. He kind of rationalized the first one away. Maybe it was the wine, who knows. But later that evening, a second wave hit, and this one was stronger, undeniable. He was sitting at the table, had just picked up a sandwich.
Yeah.
And the sensation was so powerful, he wrote that he had to put the sandwich down and actually take his glasses off because he literally did not know what to expect next. It felt like he was losing his normal physical bearings.
Wow, that sounds unsettling. Did it stay just physical tingling?
No, this time it evolved. Despite the noise of conversation around him, he experienced something internal, auditory. He described a weird sensation of voices within me, like mouths open or crying in soundless rhythm.
Soundless voices within him. Okay, that's definitely beyond normal physical experience.
Definitely. But the most crucial part, the bit that ties directly back to Seth's concepts, was a kind of visual or maybe tactile visual sensation that followed.
What did he sense?
He said he sensed, or maybe glimpsed, a great chute or trough or pathway of some kind that reached down into me from above me, or at least from outside of me.
A chute, a pathway, reaching into him.
Yeah. Think about it. Seth just talked about the inner senses, psychological time as a connective, the pathway between inner and outer reality. Here's Rob feeling a physical tingling, hearing inner sounds, and then sensing a pathway connecting him to something beyond his immediate physical self.
It's like his inner senses just switched on, hard, but experienced through his body, because his conscious mind was maybe distracted by the party.
That seems plausible. The conscious gatekeeper was occupied, and the inner reality, the vitality flow, made itself known. But of course, his conscious mind immediately started trying to make sense of it, or rather, fight it.
How did he react mentally?
His notes show pure rational struggle. He's asking himself, was it the wine after all? Was it some kind of medical attack? A stroke? Was it a psychic warning about something bad? He even wonders, had I again called for help, was this an attempt at an answer?
So his intellect immediately framed it as external, possibly threatening, or maybe an answer to a plea, but not as just the normal mechanics of his own larger self operating.
Exactly. It's the man in the dark room yelling witchcraft. He felt the elemental vitality moving, experienced the connection, but the conscious mind, trained to distrust the unseen, labeled it as possibly dangerous or abnormal.
It's the perfect real-world example of everything Seth was just talking about. The vitality is real, the connection is real, the inner senses are real, but our conscious minds are conditioned to deny or pathologize the experience.
It serves as powerful, tangible evidence within the text itself. It shows that these aren't just abstract philosophical ideas. They describe operational mechanics of consciousness that can, under certain circumstances, become physically palpable. The breather-dreamer self can literally make itself felt. #OutTRO.
Wow. Okay, that session 23, is just packed.
Yeah.
Profound, funny, a bit chilling with Rob's experience. Let's try and recap the absolute core nuggets we pulled out of this deep dive.
All right. First, the rules of the game for physical life. You've got the 3 essential rules: mother, father, child. That's your basic ticket to ride, experiencing human growth.
Right, the minimum requirement.
But the real driver for continued reincarnation, or for evolution, seems to be using your full potential. That innate ability you have to take the universe's basic vitality and shape it into meaningful patterns. That's the higher calling.
And that vitality itself, it's not scarce. It's limitless, self-generating, like air. We all draw from it, constantly shaping it with our consciousness, our mental enzymes.
Which forms the physical world around us, the camouflage. The solid world isn't solid in the way we think. It's patterned energy, constantly being projected and maintained by consciousness.
And the great human irony is that we deny the very part of ourselves that does this creating. The breather, the dreamer, the 2/3 of our reality we often ignore because it's not accessible to our 5 senses alone.
That denial leads to the man divided, the man in the dark room yelling witchcraft at his own hands. We separate ourselves from our own power source.
And finally, the big reveal, the dreamer. The breather, that deeper self, is the primary creator, especially during sleep. It shapes reality in a less distorted way than our often fearful or limited waking ego. And linear clock time, that's just another piece of camouflage we built.
It really is a paradigm shift. You are the creator, drawing on limitless energy, primarily from a level of self you might not even acknowledge. It puts the power and the responsibility squarely back on you.
Absolutely. Now, if this has sparked your curiosity, and it really should have, this is just scratching the surface. We strongly encourage you to explore the source material directly.
Definitely. Check out the Seth Material books. The publisher, New Awareness Network, has a website and bookstore where you can find the early sessions and much more. That's at https://the-early-sessions. Really dive in.
And just to be clear, we're distributing this deep dive completely free of charge across all major platforms. We believe this kind of information, these perspectives on reality, should be available for anyone interested in exploring them for educational purposes.
Absolutely. Okay, so for that final thought to chew on, building on everything we've discussed,
Yeah.
if your dreaming, breathing self is the main creator of your physical reality, shaping limitless vitality, and if rigid clock time is just an artificial camouflage your conscious mind clings to,
Okay.
how would your day-to-day life actually change if you started consciously treating every moment, every clock minute, not as some external pressure cooker demanding you rush, but as your own deliberate choice of psychological time, a space you create and inhabit?
Instead of being run by the clock, seeing each moment as a container, I'm filling with my own focus and energy.
Exactly. What might you create? What patterns might you form with those mental enzymes if you truly stopped denying the power of the breather and the dreamer within? If you decided to use that connection with intention right now in this waking moment?
What potential is just sitting there waiting for you to stop yelling witchcraft and start shaping?
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Until next time, keep digging beneath the camouflage.